You're busy, you've got a decent practice, but nobody wants to be decent. You want to be great, and you want to have a great practice. So how did the most productive, profitable dentist in the nation balance real life, work, and profits, and somehow make it all seem fun? Well, it comes down to simple, everyday practices. So grab a lunch, join us as we chat with top clinicians and influencers to discover their formula for uncommon success. Are you ready? Then it's time to explore everyday practices with Vicki McManus-Peterson and Dr. Chad Johnson.
Welcome everyone to Everyday Practices with Vicki McManus-Peterson. Vicki, how are you?
Hey Chad, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fine. So we've got some storms coming through, and hopefully if you hear some rumbling, it is getting close to dinner, but it's not my stomach. It's the thunderstorms and hopefully no tornadoes.
Oh, you know what's great about that is the guest that we have today. We're going to call him Batman and Robin because that's what they call themselves.
Yes.
But it is one of my favorite friends in PDA, Dr. Pete Thompson. He is the guy that everybody wants to beat. I know you put a target on his back. You're always looking like,
I've given up.
I like to do as much as he does. And his best friend, Jeff Nader. So you said storms. These guys, between the two of them, they have been practicing 45 years. And I know they've weathered a few storms. So Pete and Jeff, welcome to Everyday Practices.
Hey, Vicki, how are you?
I'm great, Dr. Thompson. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Hey, Vicki, glad to be here. Hey, Chad.
Yeah, Jeff, nice to meet you.
Thank you. Same here. I'm surprised our paths haven't crossed at a PDA meeting at some point in time.
I know, that's crazy. Yeah, out of all the workshops and whatnot. When's the last time that you've gone down to Dallas for a workshop?
Let's see. I heard Bruce. It's been a couple years.
Yeah. Gotcha.
It's when he was introducing a couple new topics. Really, the risk factors were some of the things that he was introducing, and that's really helped me because it's something I use every day. It makes it just an easy outline for my team to follow as we're having conversations with patients. So,
Jeff, that's a good point. We just to cross-link it with our last podcast that we just recorded, you'll, as the listeners, be wanting to look for Patty Suey's a conversation that Vicki and I just had talking about risk factors again, as if Bruce doesn't talk enough about it on his podcast. But, it's a recurring theme that Coyce has brought to the forefront of dentistry, and Bruce keeps on bringing. How do you go about using it? What's your dialogue sound like, Jeff?
When we're having I think we use it most during our new patient experience.
Yes.
And in my practice, the hygienist is the primary person who's doing data collecting. And so it's not me, it's not an assistant. We're developing a relationship with the hygienist. And it's our goal for that patient, assuming they like our hygienist, that they stay with that same person, throughout their time in our practice. And she will spend time going through those risk factors. And I was telling Pete the other day that we have kind of a secret way of communicating where she will put out some brochures on the side counter as I walk in right next to the sink with topics that she has been discussing. So it very subtly cues me into, she's talked about periodontal disease, she's talked about bruxism, she's talked about the bite, she's talked about CEREC, whatever topic she has felt based upon the data that she's collected is appropriate for that patient as kind of a starting point. Those brochures are laid out on the countertop, and it's really easy to just start in a conversation and say, oh, John, I see that Debbie's been talking to you about gum disease or whatever else she's been discussing.
Man, I love that.
That's really cool. It's so simple, but yet I don't do that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really worked well. We've been doing it a couple of years, and it's taking us a little time to really refine it, so that it's super smooth. Like a fresh jar of Skippy, we like to say. But it's very easy for us to start a conversation that way. And, we've got our little CEREC model. I'm not sure you can even get these things anymore. I've tried to buy a few more. They're probably 15 years old, but it's that great little model. It's all yellowed from the sun shining on it. But it's this, plastic model of a tooth with a CEREC inlay in it. And so we've got one of those in every room. And it's just an easy way for, let's say we've got a new patient who's come in and they've broken a tooth, and that's their chief complaint. So that's what the hygienist is going to be talking about, is how we address that chief complaint. And so super easy for us to begin that conversation because I see the CEREC model sitting out on the counter. Or maybe it's cosmetics. So maybe she's done a little cosmetic before and after shot because we've got some cool software where we can morph in a smile. So she'll have those pictures printed out already. And so it's a great segue for a conversation.
Pete, top that, buddy.
I've given up. I'm going to go ahead and go home. Years ago, I learned you cannot outdo Jeff at the dinner table. This guy is a master of jokes. And you talk about guys that always smile. You can't, once you get Jeff rolling, you don't want him to stop, number one, but he's got one joke after another. So maybe we can squeeze him a little extra tight today and get a few out of him there. That would be pretty par for the course.
Did you guys go to South America together?
We did. Yes, we did.
Have you guys done what? A couple of those trips? 3 of those trips?
The 2 of us have done just that one. We have another one of our CE buddies that has done 2. I would go back, and I'm planning on going back probably within the next year. You just learn so much when you are just forced into that situation. And he says, okay, I want you to do bilateral sinus lifts. Go ahead and do 2 tunnel grafts here and then put an implant in through the tunnel graft. And you're like, what? What'd you just say? And he just is, he expects you to do it, and he walks you through it. And once he feels that you're comfortable with it, literally in that 4 or 5 day stint, we probably did 40 implants. And I have already done thousands of implants, so I don't really need the experience of the implant.
It's not for practice per se.
And the bone grafting and the way that he would go in and he would literally make an incision below the mucogingival junction and stretch and release all the attached gingiva, stretch all that tissue up over the crest of the ridge and place an implant through that incision that was below the attached gingiva. It was crazy. It was crazy to watch him do things like that.
Was that to lower infection potential? What's the scoop?
So you can bone graft it at the same time. So if you have like a little saddle-shaped defect there, you put the implant in actually supra bony, and then graft it all, put a membrane over it, and then just you pull the tissue back over because it's never really pulled off of it. You've just stretched it up there, and then pull it back over. So I'm just telling you, those sorts of things when you're doing when you're forced to really go out of your comfort zone and your box and do things like that, you learn so much. And that's why I think certainly that's Sam Lee. And if you haven't looked at doing his courses, man, do it. We should all do it together.
I'm down.
You really learn so much. I've passed that information along to a couple of different guys. So risk factors. I do mine very differently. So as what of Jeff and I are trying to create with this dynamic dental duo podcast that we've started is we're trying to just get the message across to the everyday guys that there are different ways of being able to run your practice successfully, and it's not necessarily cookie cutter. Everybody does them a little differently. I have a very different practice from what Jeff has. Jeff has built his over many years with really brilliant ideas. And I've just kind of stumbled through what I do down here in Eastern New Mexico, but have learned a lot and have fundamentally transformed the way that I see patients. And so part of my new patient exam, we go through our new patient experience where the patient comes in, we introduce them to technology, we introduce them to the office, we introduce them to our team. They get to kind of walk down the hall, and our halls are lined with pictures of our before and after cases, and they're poster-sized pictures. And then we get all the records, and as my team is getting the records, I'm looking at x-rays, I'm looking at the pictures. So before I ever get a chance to meet the patient, I've looked at their x-rays, I've looked at their pictures, I get a quick 30-second summation from my team of, okay, this is what Mrs. Jones is here for today. She's concerned that she's got this and this going on. She thinks maybe she's heading into a denture. So by the time I meet that patient, I kind of already formulated my plan of attack. And then it's just a matter of trying to figure out what it is that they are wanting. And and to educate them on what is happening in their mouth. And that is what I see the beauty of the risk factors of being able to educate them, because by the time we're done with that conversation and all those risk factors, they are. I ask them, I said, do you understand what I'm saying? And they're always shaking their head, yes. So you're getting this, yes. So hopefully that's my goal. When they leave our practice, they understand, they grasp the concept of what it is that's happening in their mouth. So very different, again, from what Jeff does, but not saying one way is better than the other. It's just, here we are, two different guys in two different worlds that do it differently, but both pretty successfully.
Jeff, tell me what kind of dentistry you do. Just for the listeners, just so everyone knows, Jeff Mader is Mader. If you want to look for it later, drmader.com, drmader.com, and you practice in South Bend, Indiana. So tell me, what kind of dentistry do you like doing? What kind of dentistry do you end up doing? What's your practice look like?
Well, the one thing I don't do is root canal treatment. And
good work. I don't either.
In dental school, actually I was in my residency doing a GPR, and my trainer said, Jeff, when it comes to the things you don't like to do, you just have to charge enough for them so that you do like it. And
yeah, of course,
charge $5,000 for a root canal for me to enjoy doing it. So, but I tell you, I think one of the reasons why Pete and I have so much fun bouncing ideas off of each other is that we're both passionate and we're both CE junkies.
Yep.
And that's where our friendship started 17 or 18 years ago. And I tell you, whenever I get bored and whenever I get too comfortable in everything that I'm doing, I just try and challenge myself and learn something new. And so I consider myself to have a pretty diverse skill set and a big procedural mix so that I don't have to refer patients out. And people like that, they develop a relationship, they trust you. The last thing they want to do is go to an unfamiliar face. So we've always been focused on presenting the highest quality care first. And so many new patients I see come in the door, even from maybe a dentist up the street who's retired recently, and they've just been patched together. And I look at this tooth that's been patched 3 times with composite and amalgam, and all I can do is say, wow, Dr. So-and-so did an amazing job of holding this tooth together for you. But why don't we talk about a long-term strategy? So I've always just committed myself to go out there on a limb and be bold and offer my patients what I would want in my mouth. I mean, I've done ceric inlays on big buccal pits before. So, that's what I would want in my mouth. And
Jeff, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. This is Vicki. You brought up something that I think is so overlooked and incredibly important. When you validated their previous dental work, and oftentimes, there's that great debate of, the last dentist was, whatever, and you downplay the previous dental work. But it's been my experience that people only invest in things that they feel have value. So when you were saying, your dentist did a great job with this amalgam and it got you to where it got you, but now let's talk about a longer term strategy. You validated them, you gave them hope, you let them know that they were being smart consumers, right? I hear it in your tone, I hear it in Dr. Thompson's tone, and I don't know if you can even speak to that, but I'm just calling it out that there is a tone of confidence that you both have that I hope that through your podcast you help convey to younger doctors or doctors who aren't really connecting with patients, that validating their current work is so important because it helps the patient relax and gain trust with you. And most importantly, people just want to be smart, right? You don't want to hear that you were an idiot for seeing your last dentist. You want to know that you're trying to be a good, smart consumer of healthcare.
I'm shocked when I hear, well, thank you for bringing that up, Vicki. I think it's a great point.
Do you think about it like that?
I'm shocked when I hear patients who come in who they've been through the mill, they've spent a lot of time and money on their teeth, and they come in and they talk about how bad their previous dentist made them feel. And or the last hygienist who, berated them because they weren't flossing enough. And I think, what is that what purpose is that? Who are they serving when they're making people feel bad about going to them?
Yeah.
And something that I always try and talk to my patients about, especially if we're talking about maybe we've got to start talking about full arch implants, or we've got to take an entirely different direction than this patient has taken previously. I always congratulate them and say what an incredible job they've done keeping their teeth this long. And especially an elderly patient who comes in who maybe has 3 teeth left, I'll still say, wow, you've got 3 teeth left. You know, that's way to go, working hard on those 3 teeth. So I think that is, I'm really glad you brought that up. And I think it does help.
It's overlooked, but important, right?
Yeah. And I think too, and I learned this from Carl Misch, who was passionate about dentists supporting each other. And he really got upset when he would hear a story about someone talking bad about another dentist or criticizing their work. And learned that from him, that how important it is not to go down that path. And I think a simple thing a simple way to get around that, let's say you've got a new patient, you're looking at a bite wing, they've got an open margin on a crown. And I just refer back to technology and I say, your dentist did a great job on this crown, but we've got better materials, better science, better technology, and we can get a better fitting crown here. And you throw up the x-ray on the monitor in front of them and show them what you're talking about, and they get it. So
how did you, and Pete, this will be for you too, because you both have this. I keep coming back to this word confidence, because that really is what connects with people and helps them move forward. I did research years ago, and it's the only emotion where people move forward. How did you develop this relaxed air of confidence? Like, surely there was a time when you were a little nervous, and you were, you're Batman and Robin because you're so poised and polished. How did you get here?
Well, I think that confidence is not something that necessarily is developed intentionally. I think it comes with experience, because when you're right out of dental school and you're first seeing the new patients and you're just overwhelmed, your mind's going in a million different directions and you're thinking, okay, how do I do this? How do I do this?
Right.
And it's stuff that once you've done that 15, 20 times, then it starts to become more commonplace. And the more times that you talk to people about comprehensive treatment in their mouth, the more it becomes commonplace, and the more confident you become, and the more relaxed you are. And it is something that they pick up on. I've had people tell me that they are choosing to let me do the work because they felt like it was second nature for me, and that I've done it so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I sit back and I said to them, wow, well, I appreciate that. I don't know that I view it that way. I view every case as being a challenge, and every case as being, a new adventure. So I think it just comes, Vicki, to answer your question, with me, I think it just came with doing it enough times to where this time you knew, okay, I'm not worried about talking to this patient about comprehensive care, or whether it's quadrant care, or whether it's, gosh, I've got to treatment plan a crown instead of a 4-surface amalgam or composite. Every one of those steps comes with a little bit of experience. And
sounds like you're pointing to the need, if you're a young dentist listening to this, and a lot of our audience is the value of finding a great mentor.
That was, Jeff and I think we're mentors to each other. And then we would listen to guys like Carl Misch or, Bruce. Bruce Baird is one of the guys that I would sit there in the crowd and listen to and think, oh my gosh, the way he says that is so perfect. Carl Misch had his inherent way of making you feel very intelligent when you were sitting in his crowd, but at the same time could kind of make fun of you. And It was good. It was really good. He was blessed with that gift. And you'd say, okay, I'm going to do that next time. I'm going to say that way next time. Bruce, he's always just been kind of happy-go-lucky, and hey, this is the way I do it, and down in West Texas, and that's the way things roll. So, Jeff, the things that I've always noticed out of Jeff is he's meticulously organized, and has a very easy kind of laugh it off approach to most people. And I think he puts the average person at ease when you're just meeting him for the first time. And so I can see how that would reflect to his patients, because I think it just is natural for him. Some people don't have that. I don't have that. I don't have that ability to just be chuckly and laughy and have people instantly at ease. And so I've had to kind of create that one act play, as we call it. I've had to kind of create that, and it does.
And do you guys also find, like I heard Jeff say, his hygienist sees the new patients, you see the new. So do you find like you can, because you know the environment, right, that helps people become comfortable and confident and want to move forward to treatment, do you then look for those attributes in your team members as you're hiring treatment coordinators and hygienists? Do you try to fill out that emotional bandwidth, if you will, with your team?
Jeff, I'll let you answer.
Yeah, well, I think it goes, you talk about confidence, and there's a reason it's called a practice, right? So 30 years, I've practiced it a few times, so I've got my shtick down. And, after I rendered my 5th patient numb because I put the implant in too deep, I thought, maybe I need to back off a little bit. That's a little humor, okay?
Seriously.
But to go back to your question, Vicki, my team members are experienced people, and I've really felt it's worth the extra money to hire an experienced hygienist, an experienced assistant. My treatment coordinator is really trained in sales, and she's the most confident person I've ever met. I mean, you cannot say no to Leanne. She knows her stuff. She presents a treatment plan with the same kind of confidence that I feel I've presented it to, and she's the one who closes the plan. Mm-hmm. And so I've tried to throw a couple of young hygienists right out of school a bone, and hire them, and realize that really the best people are the ones who are comfortable in their profession because they've practiced it for so long. And
that's kind of counterintuitive, right? Older doctors need younger team members, but yet still experienced. Younger doctors need older team members with the experience. It's that balance.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Chad, who's right in the middle with everything. You're the perfect age with the perfect team, and everything runs smooth.
All the time. Everything runs perfectly smooth.
Liar, pants on fire.
These guys could take a few hints from me, but I mean,
Well, you know what? I just do whatever Pete does. So he's over here, throwing me a bone, telling me about how great I am, and I appreciate it. But when I met Pete, I quickly discovered that here's a guy who's not afraid to try anything. And I always just say, well, I'm just going to do whatever Pete does. And he knows I'm a puppy dog in his shadow. And when he tells me, he's the guy who I met 18 years ago at a pool bar, maybe for 5 minutes, and said, hey, why don't we go take Mish's surgery course? And I thought, this guy's crazy. And the more I thought about it, what do I have to lose? And it's probably the best move that I ever made was getting involved in implant dentistry. And it's probably 80% of what I do all day long. And I love it. And if I were back in the trenches not doing that and referring all my implant cases out to patients or out to other oral surgeons, I'm not sure what I'd be doing. And I think we've both just challenged each other to take it to the next level, to go outside our comfort zone. And as we do it and as we practice it more and more, we get more confident in it. And we just don't want to ever get to the point where we're too confident. We want to make sure that
humble.
We're not taking the lackadaisical approach to any of this stuff.
Well, Jeff, I want to know, do the oral surgeons in your area still send you a Christmas popcorn tin?
I used to get a big cooler full of 8-ounce fillets, and then now I just get a little, little bag of popcorn. So
a $5 Burger King gift card.
There's actually there is one oral surgeon in town who actually stood at the podium when I started doing IV sedation. He stood at the podium at a local dental society and pretty much bashed me in front of all of my colleagues.
Wow.
And, let's just say I haven't referred a patient to him since.
Yeah. Top professionalism there, right?
Yeah. And then
do you have other general dentists that refer to you for sedation or work like that?
For sedation, I do. I actually sent a letter out to just about every dentist in town, and in this letter I quoted what's at the base of the Statue of Liberty, which is "Give me your hungry, give me your poor, give me your destitute." And I sent out a letter and I said, "Give me your afraid, give me your psychotic, give me your gaggers." And I said, those patients,
that psycho risk patient.
yeah, I mean, the people that make your job stressful, send them to me, and I'll be happy to care for them, and then send them back to you for their regular.
That's bold.
And I'm surprised. It's usually the 60-year-old gagger who is just cannot stomach an impression. The guy needs a crown on number 15, and that's the patient that I'll get. We give him a little Versed, get him done with a CEREC in an hour, and that's just great. And it's helped me develop a better relationship, I think, with my local dentist.
I like that a lot.
Pete, I want to bounce it off to you. What kind of dentistry do you do? I know, of course, but I want the listeners to know. You're in Portales, New Mexico.
Which is the richest metropolis in America.
Richest metropolis.
Got it so easy. Pete Thompson I just got to tell you, he's so far out there, Pete. I wanted to come and visit you when I was in Albuquerque, but it was still too far. Like, you are in the middle of freaking nowhere. I'm in the state and I still can't get to you. You're so far out there.
There's many ways of saying that I'm very far out there, and that is one.
You are way out there, man.
I'm out there. So I do. My practice is everyday dentistry for me, and that is I try to have, because we developed a sedation practice 15, 17 years ago, we don't have a traditional insurance-based hygiene pool that we draw from. We do have a relatively steady hygiene pool, but people that are high fear and neglect tend to not come back for follow-ups. And so it is different in that sense. I do everything from fillings to full arch implant supported prostheses, just depending on what we're at. My typical day is 2 to 3 sedations, and typically those sedations are either several CERECs or a couple of implants or some bone grafting and implants. Today I did 2 implants, 4 CERECs, and a composite filling on the same person. And so it's not unusual for me to mix a little bit of everything in while the patient is sedated, try to knock out as much as possible.
Wow.
So we kind of just developed, again, the confidence knowing that I can do a CEREC right next to an implant, even though may have a little bit of oozing. It's possible to get it done. And we've just...
Do you use freaking laser beams?
I have laser beams that shoot out of my eyeball.
Yeah, attached to your head.
To his handpiece. But you know what? Because you're a fantastic marketer. And in terms of marketing, most dental practices are going the traditional 3-mile radius or 5 to 10 minute drive time. What's your average drive time to get to your practice?
Well, my 3-mile radius puts you out in the cows. And so I realized I just thought when I moved here, because this is where my wife is from. I'm not bashing it in any sense. It's just not where I would have.
It's a beautiful area, but it is isolated.
It is. It has a lot of beauty in its own sense. But I knew very early on that I wanted to do the type of dentistry that I loved, and it was more of the full mouth type cases. And whether that was rehabbing someone's existing dentation or creating a new dentition for them. And so if I was relying on Portalis to provide those patients for me, I wouldn't be working very much. And so I dabbled in early on in radio and just trying to, reach out to Clovis and Portalis. Clovis is 20 miles north of us. And then I thought, well, Clovis, it worked okay in Clovis. Why wouldn't it work down here? And because we were offering something that was different than the typical office, it did work, and it worked pretty well. And then it got bigger and bigger. And the more success I had with it, the more I kind of would think, well, I'm going to try this community now. And so now we are marketing to a radius of about 200 miles. So it's about a 400-mile stretch from our office, 200 miles in either direction.
Wow.
And it's interesting though, because even in doing that over the years, marketing has changed so much. It used to be if you had an ad in the Yellow Pages and you were the biggest ad and you had the biggest smile, you owned it. And now no one does Yellow Pages. At least in our communities, no one does Yellow Pages. And when the online marketing came on, you had to have a website, you had to do this and that. We were trying everything, and we would have certain success with some things more than others, but certainly probably our most successful had always been radio because it was inexpensive and it allowed us to reach a relatively wide area. But now everybody's gone to XM and, podcasts and whatever. I myself don't even listen to the radio. I haven't listened to the radio in forever. So if I'm in the car, I'm listening to Ben Shapiro, or I'm listening to, Everyday Smiles, or my new fantastic buddy Jeff Mader and I are doing our podcast, and we're trying to make that work, and it's the dynamicdentalduo.com.
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
These things are as dentistry has changed. I've tried to morph and change with it. The latest thing that we're trying, Jeff and I are both trying, and we'll let you know how it goes.
And is Jenny still helping you with your marketing?
Jenny is still doing just about everything.
Nice.
We love Jenny Bowman.
I mean, you're like this fantastic, because everybody says, how did Bruce do what he does, right? And I look at you, I look at Jeff, I look at all of our Grand Slammers, all the doctors that are doing consistently $1,000 or more. There are certain things that you all have in common. Number one, you are uncommon in your commitment to your own education and your passion for doing things well. I never hear any of you talk about 6 ways to handle a remake. You just don't worry about remakes or emergencies, or that they don't happen because your quality is so high. Second thing is your staff turnover is very low. You're very good to your teams. You hire experience, you train for experience, you pay for experience. I love that. And the third is that you've got very almost scientific in your approach to marketing. And we've helped you with and watched your marketing for years. And it has to be monitored. So I think that's, to be the opposite of a productive dentist would be right. Just do the minimum state requirements for your licensure, hire the cheapest people you can get, let them go through a revolving door, build a website once and hope that you're done. Right?
Well, that's statistically, Vicki, that's 90 to 95% of every dentist.
And so what is the easiest thing you would share with somebody who feels like they're spinning, kind of trapped in this thing, like, well, I can't hire more expensive people because I don't have the right patients coming in, which is a catch-22 because I don't need to do implants. So if you and Jeff, off the cuff, if you had to do one small step to help somebody get on the right path, what would you advise them to do?
I always tell. We have friends that we've developed over the years, and I always tell them, they'll ask us the same thing, and I say, you've got to start marketing. You've got to start marketing. You can't expect your patient base to know what you are or who you do. And in your marketing,
Vicki, stop it.
What?
That was fun.
Who you are or what you do is
There
what
you
you meant
go.
to say, Pete. Come on.
Say.
Vicki.
I'm too naive.
Oh.
Vicki. No, sure. I mean, seriously. I mean, I think the average dentist gets back from some CE and say, okay, now the world's going to know that I now do CEREC or I now do implants. And you've got to be able to create a message that will resonate to people, that will make them think of you the next time something happens in their mouth. And that is the challenge. And how do you do it? You figure it out over the years. And there are good people out there like PDA marketing. Jeff uses a lady I'll let him talk about, because I've used her before and she was really good. But they know basically how to get going. And the sooner you get started with marketing, the sooner you will be able to change your present course.
Yeah.
The longer you wait to really invest in marketing, the longer you're going to be stuck in the doldrums.
That's a great answer. I thought you were going to say something else. So Jeff, what's your answer? What would you give?
On the topic of marketing, it's such a slow crawl, because I think dentists, there's not that immediate return of your investment. And dentists they're shocked when they find out how much it costs to do TV or radio or print ad, and they invest a couple $1,000s in it, and they expect the phone to start ringing, 2 days later after their first electronic billboard goes up. So what I have learned just recently is that 15 years ago, it took people to hear your name. It took 5 times before there would be some type of recognition. And in today's world, the way people are bombarded, it takes 15 to 20 hits before somebody's going to remember your name. Or when they break a tooth, they're going to think about, I got to call Dr. Mater or Dr. Thompson. And so it's a slow grind. But for someone who is working in a solo practice, who is trying to get their name out there, they've just got to keep hitting it in a multiple number of ways. Whether that it's amazing how inexpensive TV can be in many markets. So in Chicago, Illinois, not so much. In South Bend, Indiana, it's cheap. And so we've been doing TV, radio, billboards for over a decade. And the objective of that is when people break a tooth and they go online and they figure out who they're going to go to, they're going to see 3 or 4 names pop up right away, but they're going to think, I've heard of that guy, Mater. We're subconsciously penetrating their brain so that we're the go-to person. And then you develop a great reputation, all that goes together. But, people don't find their dentist anymore by asking their neighbor who they go to. They do their homework and they do their research. So there's got to be that name recognition, and it's got to be the total package. So when they're going to search your website and make sure it's quality, make sure you've got great reviews. I can't remember the last time I had a patient come to me as a new patient who didn't comment about our reviews, because they do their homework with their healthcare providers.
I love it. You guys just
it's a grind.
You've covered such amazing ground with us today. I wish our podcast were longer, because you talked about risk factors, clinical treatment planning, the new patient journey, the experience, your own friendships, marketing. This is a power-packed episode, don't you think, Chad?
Absolutely. And for $14.95, if you all to my personal bank account would send that $14.95, I'll give you the exclusive details to the behind the scenes answers and secrets that they didn't share today.
I'll also include a joke or two.
For $16.95.
But wait, Pete Thompson's going to throw in an airplane ride.
Oh wow! I didn't mean $1,495. I meant $14.95. No, but guys, thanks so much for joining us today on Everyday Practices, and we look forward to kind of spreading the news about your Dynamic Dental Duo podcast that you guys have begun. That's awesome news. And I have a question before we sign off that the listeners are just dying to know, and I want each of you to answer your most honest, truthful answer. But I'm going to ask you a question about your favorite one or the other. Your only decision is just to decide which one is your favorite and just go with it. Okay. Jeff, let's start with you. Bacon or eggs?
Oh, bacon.
And Pete, bacon or eggs?
Of course it's bacon.
Bacon wins again. Vicki, are you feeling today is a bacon kind of day or an egg kind of day?
It's a bacon and egg day, man.
Oh, boy.
I'm going to wear my bacon and egg earrings all day today.
And for all of our listeners too, thanks for joining us for Everyday Practices.
Bring your lunch or take us to the gym again next week to improve your everyday practices. Also, subscribe on iTunes, follow us on social media, and sign up for our email list. Now get out there and win with Everyday Practices.